Well. Look who finally enrolled in the school of pain you built. You recognize the place, don't you? The cracked walls, the echoes of your own name twisted into a joke. You used to sit in the back row of humiliation, the class clown of failure, while they graded your downfall with laughter. But the thing about fools is that they pay attention when no one thinks they're listening. You studied every smirk. Every whispered insult became a chapter in your secret textbook. Every door slammed in your face was just a new assignment. They called you naive for believing in yourself. They called you weak for dreaming out loud. But what they didn't realize was that their cruelty was teaching you something no school could offer: how to rise with scars instead of degrees. You learned that silence was sharper than applause. That rejection is just a quiz from the universe, checking who's ready for war. You learned how to bleed quietly and rebuild loudly. Now, the bell rings differently, because class is in session and you're the one standing at the blackboard. The fool became the professor. The dropout became the curriculum. And every single one of them now pays tuition to study your every move. Welcome to the classroom of chaos, where pain is the teacher, and you are the lesson they'll never forget. The sweet symphony of laughter. You still remember it, don't you? Every echo, every smirk, every so-called friend who turned your name into a punchline. They called you a fool for believing too much, dreaming too far, caring too deeply. They turned your hope into their favorite joke. You walked into rooms filled with fake applause, clapping not for your rise, but for your fall. They said your plans were absurd, your vision childish, your silence weakness. And you, being naive, thought they simply didn't understand you. But they did. Oh, they understood perfectly. They just couldn't stand that your fire didn't need their permission to burn. You were the entertainment, remember? The example they used to feel smarter about their mediocrity. The clown juggling dreams in a room full of cynics. Every time you stumbled, they laughed. Every time you bled, they called it proof you'd never make it. But what they didn't know was that you were studying. You were collecting data, not defeat. Every mockery was a note in your hidden curriculum. Every betrayal was a new chapter in your private textbook. They thought you were practicing failure. Turns out, you were rehearsing revenge. You learned how hypocrisy walks, how jealousy speaks, how betrayal smiles. You learned how to weaponize memory, how to turn every scar into strategy. They thought they were breaking you, but all they did was teach you their tactics. And now, the lesson plan is complete, because the fool they mocked just graduated in silence and majored in payback. Then came the silence. Cold, endless, surgical. You stopped defending yourself. You stopped explaining. You stopped performing for people who mistook your kindness for weakness. While they celebrated your absence, you studied theirs. While they shouted your failures across every hallway, you were mapping every echo. Not studying books, studying behavior. Not chasing applause, chasing patterns. You learned how liars blink before they strike, how envy hides behind laughter, how betrayal rehearses its lines in the mirror long before it performs. Every word they whispered behind your back became a note. Every smirk became data. You archived it all. The betrayals, the patterns, the faces. You turned silence into surveillance. You turned pain into paperwork. You built a vault, not for money, but for memories too sharp to forget. They thought you disappeared. They thought you surrendered. But in truth, you were graduating from their illusions. You were evolving in the shadows while they slept on their thrones of arrogance. You became fluent in quiet. You learned how to walk through storms without making a sound. You learned how patience isn't weakness. It's the sharpening of knives behind closed doors. And when they mocked your silence, you smiled, because you knew something they didn't. That noise dies fast, but silence echoes forever. They thought you were gone. You were only getting precise. You learned that real power doesn't shout. It waits for the bell to ring. And then came exam day. No warning, no schedule, no mercy. You walked back into the same halls where they once laughed. Same faces, same whispers. Only this time, the silence belonged to you. They used to mock your handwriting. Now, they trace every curve of your signature, praying to replicate it. They used to call your plans delusion. Now they frame your strategies on their walls like sacred scripture. The irony? You didn't even study to prove them wrong. You just outgrew the subject they worshipped. You don't chase validation anymore. You conduct the class. Every sneer turned into attendance. Every betrayer, now a desperate student taking notes in fear. You test them without warning. Can they survive what you endured? Can they rebuild from ashes without applause? Can they wear silence like armor? They fail every time. Because your chaos can't be cloned. Your pain can't be plagiarized. Your discipline can't be downloaded. You became the standard, the curve they can't reach, the answer key they'll never understand. They thought you were just another lesson in failure, but you rewrote the syllabus in blood and brilliance. Now, when they look at you, they don't see the fool. They see the professor of every consequence they tried to escape. And while they copy your every move, you've already moved on to the next chapter. They wanted to laugh at your exams. Instead, they're failing your course in silence. And then came the graduation. Not the kind with smiles and flowers. The kind written in silence, sealed with scars. They stood before you. The same faces that once spat laughter in your direction, now dressed in black robes of regret. Their masks slipped under the weight of realization. The spotlight burned through their lies, and every truth you once screamed in whispers now echoed like thunder in their bones. You hand them their certificates, not in paper, but in pain. Each one signed by consequence, stamped with exposure. Their grades, written in guilt. Their attendance, perfect, in every memory they tried to erase. And you don't clap, you don't smile, you don't need the applause. Their imitation is your diploma, their silence, your standing ovation. Every scar became a thesis, every sleepless night, a degree in domination, every rejection letter, a published chapter in the gospel of your rise. You didn't pass their test. You built the exam. You set the questions. And now they beg for hints to survive it. You surpassed revenge long ago. This is poetic justice, carved in irony, signed in fire. You don't need revenge when the universe already turned the mirror toward them. They finally see what you were building while they laughed. You never wanted to destroy them. You just wanted them to watch. To witness the fool they mocked, become the curriculum they studied. Congratulations, the damned have graduated, and you wrote the syllabus for their regret. And now, the verdict. No jury, no judge, no appeal. Just truth, raw, undeniable, and poetic. You stand above the ruins of their pride, the ashes of their certainty. They stare up at you like students who finally understood the lesson too late. And you don't gloat. You don't laugh. You just observe. Because this isn't revenge anymore. It's revelation. You were never the fool. You were the first to try what they were too afraid to imagine. The first to bleed for an idea, too wild for their small cages of comfort. The first to fail publicly, rise privately, and return like a storm, carrying the answers they never had the courage to ask. You wanted validation. Now you are the validation. They paid in humiliation. You cashed in legacy. They studied your downfall like entertainment. Now they cite your rise like scripture. They mocked your handwriting and built their empires on your notes. Funny, isn't it? How the fool they ridiculed became the architect of their intelligence. How every insult they threw became part of the curriculum you wrote in blood, pain, and persistence. So let the records show. The case is closed. The fool they mocked taught the world how to think. And as the smoke clears, the classroom burns quietly behind you. Proof that even fire can be educated.